Hello Guardians, ISO here. In this video, I wanted to share a story I've been piecing together over the last few weeks, based on the lore entries for some of the new weapons, as well as the new Beneath the Endless Night lore book. The Eliksni of House Light have been set up in the city, which of course presents new problems. The last city is already running on low resources because of the endless night the Vex have cursed them with. Many are assisting in the effort to provide aid where possible. However, Crow, who spent the first few years of his life as a guardian among the close company of exclusively Eliksni, was passed up and told to stay on the sidelines. In a scene in Beneath the Endless Night, Chapter 1, Acceptance, Crow has a stern word with the two surviving members of the Vanguard, Zavala and Ikora. "I'm the most qualified for this," Crow's voice reverberated off the immense window, making the Vanguard commander's office feel even more cavernous than it was. At night, the edges of Zavala's office were usually dark, but the miasma of Vex energy that swirled in the city below made it more so. Crow sighed and paced in the gloom like a caged animal. Zavala faced the window and stood, unmoving, a statue carved of Larimar, depicting a test of infinite patience. He glanced over at Ikora, her hands gently clasped as she watched Crow with disquiet contemplation. "We know," she said, after what felt like an eternity. "But your expertise and relationship with the Eliksni aren't the only deciding factors here." "Exactly how long am I going to be continually tried in a court of public opinion?" Crow asked pointedly. "And when in this trial will I be given a clear understanding of what I'm on trial for?" Zavala regarded the Awoken's reflection in the window. It reminded him of the near-fatal walk through the gardens not so long ago. His shoulders sagged. "Crow," Zavala said as he turned to face him. "This is a delicate situation. The consensus has come down hard on us for welcoming the Eliksni into the city, and I can't have them using you as another bludgeon." "Oh, so that's all this is, a political maneuver," Crow pushed. "To protect yourselves. No hard feelings, nothing behind the looks you give me when you don't think I'm watching?" Zavala stiffened, and Crow sensed the conversational temperature in the room change. "This matter aside, if your past identity became public before we had a plan in place, it could cause considerable harm to you, and to the people you care about," Ikora said evenly. "People who have come to care about you," she added. For a long time, no one spoke, and when Crow did, his voice was small. "Then what? I keep hiding from the shadow of the man I was before? Forever?" "Not forever," Ikora said firmly. "But for now." Crow shifted his focus to Ikora and saw the hurt in her eyes. He'd seen it in Amanda's too, whenever she spoke of the dead. Without another word, he nodded and left. Ikora closed her eyes, and the breath she'd been holding in slowly left her. "He's going to Osiris," she warned. "And if Osiris is half the leader he's shown himself to be, he'll tell him the same thing," Zavala said with great fatigue, finally sinking into his chair. In the momentary silence that settled between them, Ikora felt an unspoken reciprocation of the generations-old friendship. "I don't know how long we can protect him," she confessed. "Neither do I." Crow is eager to provide assistance in any way he can, though the Vanguard know that the city is already on edge from the arrival of the refugees in the city. The Crow's notorious past from before he was resurrected as a guardian would certainly not help assuage the citizens' panic. Not even Crow is fully aware of the crimes he committed during his past life, or exactly who he used to be, or exactly who he killed. However, he's flexible if not anything, and if the Vanguard wouldn't allow him to act in any official capacity, he'd just do so in an unofficial one. The following is from Beneath the Endless Night, Chapter 3, Gifts from the Shore. Though the metal crate they were carrying likely weighed more than they did, the two Eliksni gave Saint 14 a wide berth on their way to the Eliksni quarter.
You see how they distrust,
Saint grumbled. Amanda Holliday scanned the crate into her datapad. The unexpected shipment of emergency supplies from the Tangled Shore nearly offloaded. Don't be such a sourpuss, she said lightly. Mixing with new folks good for the soul.
I mix,
objected Saint.
But the Fallen, they do not enjoy my company. And I feel the same for them.
Well, maybe that's exactly why Ikora picked you for this, Amanda said. Though Saint was fully helmeted, she could swear he rolled his eyes. Two more Eliksni came bearing another crate. One noticed Saint too late and stumbled, dropping the crate. Its security locks popped as it crashed to the ground. A young Eliksni wearing House of Light colors and a bright orange and blue Vanguard lanyard scampered over in distress. Saint sighed.
It is fine,
he said to the Eliksni.
Spider probably sends more surplus from Old House of Dusk. Knowing you carry supplies from our enemies is great joke to him.
He dragged the crate out of the walkway with one hand and knelt to repair the locks. As Amanda scanned the damaged crate, the young Eliksni came closer. He eyed Saint warily, then held up a sheaf of paper like a shield. Manifest, he stated haltingly. Well, thank you, Amanda said, with unforced brightness. She tapped her datapad. I've got it digitally. You got it digitally, echoed the Eliksni. He fidgeted for a moment, then proudly held up the badge on his lanyard, which read, Temporary. Amanda sighed. What have you got there? Authorization for unloading of supplies from Tangled Shore. Of supplies sent from Spider, he said. He leaned in slowly, looking carefully at Saint and Amanda. My gentlemen, he added slyly. Amanda snorted so abruptly that Saint fumbled with the lock, crushing it in his hand. Saint looked up.
Can you two not be quiet?
Come on now, Amanda admonished Saint lightly. I don't hear you practicing your Eliksni, and this fella's doing his best to bridge the gap. Amanda turned back to the Eliksni. That ain't exactly right, but you speak our language pretty well, she said. Thank you, answered the Eliksni, clearly eager for conversation. Do all humans serve Spider-Kel? Serve Spider? Amanda spat. Spider's nothing but a... And the 5 spirited words that followed were replete with hard consonants. The Eliksni froze, wary of her tone, while not understanding her words. Amanda caught herself and took a breath. Which is our way of saying he's a kind and generous individual, she said to the Eliksni, who nodded along with her.
This lock has been ruined by distractions,
Saint said as he rose to his feet. He removed the lid and looked inside, then lifted a loose coil of rubbery tubes.
Servitor plugs, filters, ether circulators.
The Titan made a confused noise. Something wrong? Amanda asked.
Not at all,
mumbled Saint as he picked up a small golden cylinder, trailing braided sapphire cords.
This rebreather alone is worth more than my ship.
Amanda moved toward Saint and looked for herself. She recognized a few necessary survival items: condensed prefab ceramic plating, vapor distillers, generator couplings. But amongst the tubes and filters were otherworldly treasures. A nanomesh sphere filled with thick pink liquid, a chrome conduit splitter with entropic plating, a glimmering opal sparkling in a nest of delicate lavender sponges. The hell is Spider playing at? Amanda said to herself. She called out to the Eliksni. Are they all like this? Yes, each one is very full of delights from our culture, from our home. We are very thanks. He cocked his head and clicked. Thankful? Amanda nodded. Let me see that manifest, she said, taking the papers from the Eliksni. He nodded and rejoined the other workers.
They will still need many of our resources to stay here,
Saint said as he carefully resealed the crate.
But this will make things easier. I am surprised Spider is so generous, even to his own people.
Amanda frowned at the manifest. This doesn't make sense, she said. There's a note at the top. Don't know what half this stuff is, but it's got to be good if Spider had it. It's all written by hand, and there aren't any values for anything on here. Saint looked at the papers over Amanda's shoulder.
The crates come from Spider's storehouse,
He said.
If he did not send them, then who did?
Just look at this listing, Amanda continued. This item says best osmosis filter hidden in his bottom drawer. This item's just a row of question marks. Here's one listed as a clock thing. This line just says noisy cube, smells bad but everybody likes it. And what's with this signature? Amanda squinted at a shape scrawled at the bottom of the form. It's a chip? She guessed, handing the paper to Saint. The Titan turned his head as he looked at the drawing.
Aha!
He cried, slapping the paper with the back of his hand.
Look, his bird!
Amanda looked again at the uneven charcoal lines, and could just make out a wobbly black bird. She let out a long breath and shook her head. Awful artist, she said. But I guess he's an alright guy. And suddenly, she was smiling. As a former enforcer for the Spider, a ruthless Eliksni mob leader in the Reef, Crow is afforded exclusive information from him. If the Spider knew that Crow was stealing supplies from his warehouses and delivering them to the last city, he would surely be furious. However, I suppose that's why Crow didn't ask for the supplies. But the city is afflicted with a different kind of hatred. A hatred rooted in a lack of understanding and experience. Indeed, maybe a third of some of the anti-Eliksni propaganda that Lakshmi II spouts to impressionable citizens is technically true. The Fallen did attack the city on multiple occasions years ago. Six Fronts, Twilight Gap. Many died on both sides of these battles. At least Lakshmi is doing what she thinks needs to be done to protect the city she loves, but she fails to understand just how far some are willing to go to protect their homes from those they perceive as threats. This is shown with stark danger in Beneath the Endless Night, Chapter 5, Sabotage, and we see just how far Crow is willing to go as well. 24 humans, their faces mostly covered with makeshift masks, slunk into the Botza District under cover of darkness. Some were armed with weapons, though most carried workaday tools like crowbars and wrenches. They planned to infiltrate the Eliksni quarter and find evidence of aggression. If they failed, they would send a clear message that the House of Light was unwelcome in the last city. Knives tore into banners, noxious fumes filled the air, paint cans rattled. The hum of the machinery around them disguised the sounds of their labor, while hushed voices conferred in terse, conspiratorial tones. I think this is their food, a young woman whispered to her male companion while warily looking over her shoulder. She didn't see anyone as they crouched by a large ether tank, but she imagined the Eliksni crowded together in a nearby building. Did they even sleep? Here, give me a hand with this, her companion said, pointing to what he guessed was a control panel. Together they pried the faceplate off, revealing a mess of wiring beneath. They shared a furtive glance and began pulling out wires by the fistful, hands shaky, their blood pounding in their ears. A low whistle like a bird call fluttered through the night air. When they looked up, a hunter stood over them only a few paces away, his face shadowed by a cowl. He held his hand cannon at hip level, aimed straight at them. Their co-conspirators, drawn by the sound, gathered in the periphery, mentally calculating their chances. Not a single one liked the odds. Even those who came armed expected to fight the Fallen, not a guardian. The hunter called out in a half-whisper, "I don't want any trouble." The woman stood frozen as the young man beside her moved towards the hunter, his jaw set. "No," his companion hissed. "Are you crazy?" She grabbed his arm to haul him behind the ruined ether tank, but he wrenched free. The young man stepped slowly towards the hunter. "You're on the wrong side of this thing," he started. The hunter pulled back on his hand cannon's hammer with an audible click. "I don't think I am," he replied. Unwilling to test the hunter's mettle, the young man called over his shoulder. "Let's go." The hunter narrowed his eyes. He watched as the young man slinked past him and spat at his feet. Something old and terrible rose up inside of the hunter. It took all of his focus to steady his hand. The conspirators peeled away from their hiding places, one by one disappearing into the dark. Some hissed choice insults and dispersions at the hunter under their breath, though none dared to look at him. In just a few minutes, the block was deserted except for the hunter, who stood alone in the street until his ghost complied over his shoulder. It chirped with concern. "You wouldn't really have shot them, right?" The hunter hesitated as he holstered his weapon. "They needed to know I was serious, Glint." "But you weren't," his ghost insisted. Wordlessly, the hunter began making his way through the destruction. Someone would sound the alarm soon, and he didn't want to be there when they did. "Tell me you weren't serious," his ghost said again, lagging behind. "Were you?" Tensions are reaching the breaking point already, and the Eliksni have only been in the city for a few weeks. Lakshmi, too, has used her technology to craft many prophecies, and about half of them are true. In her future, she sees the refugees that have been welcomed into the ruins of the Botza District standing over dead humans, while buildings burn in the background. How far will these actions and emotions travel? Only time will tell, as it does for all things. However, I'd like to leave things on a lighter note. As you may know, I'm an avid fan of Gambit, which means I pay plenty of visits to the Drifter. "I was hoping you'd stop by." Drifter, energetic as ever, greets you with a grin. "Banshee mentioned you might be looking for me. Couldn't remember why, but I pieced it together. New gun, right? Looking to deck it out, Drifter style." He narrowed his eyes. "Well, this time the dredgen gets to wet his beak." He leans in close. "I'm gonna wager some hefty glimmer on you, and you're gonna win some Gambit for me. Dig?" Drifter leans back proudly. "Come on, it'll be fun. What do you say, hero?" However, after I completed a few tasks for him, instead of the payment I was promised, he had this to say. "Great work out there, Guardian," the Drifter says. "I had the glimmer in my hands, but, well..." He shrugs his shoulders, palms up in helpless confusion. "Something weird happened when I was cashing in my contraband. I ordered a whole mess of exotic gun parts, but a big shipment of supplies got delivered to the Eliksni quarter instead. Well, I guess these clumsy fingers of mine hit an elaborate series of wrong keys. And, get this, instead of putting 4 Drifter hands off, I somehow accidentally wrote from Lakshmi 2 on all the crates. Can you believe it?" He shakes his head and grins. "I'll still pretty up your piece for you. Least I can do for you, keeping my embarrassing mix-up to yourself. You get me?" While extra glimmer is always nice, the Drifter shipping helpful supplies to the Eliksni in Lakshmi's name just to mess with her does put a smile on my face. This is only the first part in a 2-part series that I have planned to go into some of the details surrounding the lives of the Eliksni refugees in the city. But as the season goes on, I might actually have enough material for multiple episodes after a part 2. So thank you for joining me today. Also, remember to subscribe if you haven't already. The best way to let me know you enjoy my content is to leave a like on the video or a comment down below. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.